All right, so diving in today, we're talking about Machiavelli.
Okay.
And, most people, when they think Machiavelli, they think The Prince.
Right.
That's his, big hit, the one about rulers and power and, basically doing whatever it takes.
Yeah.
But we're going a little deeper today.
Okay.
We're looking at the Discourses on Livy,
Right.
which is kind of a whole different thing.
Yeah.
Less about seizing power and more about, building a republic that lasts.
A republic that can actually survive.
Yeah. So it's kind of a big shift.
Absolutely. It really shows a different side of Machiavelli.
Right.
It's more complex than just the, typical Machiavellian stereotype.
Exactly. Yeah. More than just the ends justify the means.
Right.
So to kind of set the stage for us,
So sure.
can you give us a little background, like Machiavelli's world? What was going on in Renaissance Florence that might have shaped his ideas?
Well, just imagine, constant turmoil.
Oh,
Florence was a hotbed of political intrigue rivalries.
yeah.
Shifting alliances. Machiavelli saw firsthand how quickly fortunes could change. How fragile power really was.
Not a great recipe for stability.
No, not at all. It was the opposite.
Yeah.
And that's where the discourses come in.
Okay.
Instead of focusing on a prince grabbing power,
Right.
he looks to ancient Rome.
Oh, interesting.
He's asking what made their republic so strong and enduring.
Huh. Okay, so the Prince is advice for a ruler,
Mm-hmm.
but Discourse is more like a blueprint for a whole system.
Exactly. And, in The Prince, he talks about consolidating power.
Right.
But in Discourses, he's actually all about, distributing it.
Great.
Yeah, he's arguing for checks and balances. He thinks the tension between different groups is actually a good thing.
Tension, that's good.
Yeah, think of it like the Roman patricians and plebeians.
Yeah.
They had their conflicts, but that kept any one group from being too powerful.
So instead of trying to get everyone on the same page, he's saying a little bit of conflict can be healthy.
Exactly. It prevents any one group from dominating and becoming corrupt.
So it's almost like a political immune system or something.
Yeah, I like that analogy.
Keeps the system from getting sick.
Exactly. And it's not just about preventing tyranny either.
Okay.
Machiavelli saw this dynamic as being essential for liberty.
So freedom isn't just good in principle, it's good for the state.
He thought it was essential for a strong state.
Huh. That's pretty forward thinking.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time in many ways.
So it's more than just a moral argument, it's practical.
Right. When people are free, they contribute more.
They're more invested.
Yeah, exactly. He saw free citizenry as a more engaged citizenry.
And that's where the idea of civic virtue comes in.
Right.
The idea that citizens should put the common good first.
Exactly. Like ancient Romans.
Right.
He was really impressed with their dedication to the Republic, their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good.
But didn't Machiavelli also have a pretty cynical view of human nature?
Well,
Deep down, aren't people inherently selfish?
that is a good question, and a lot of people think that. And it is true that Machiavelli wasn't naive. He knew people were self-interested.
Okay.
But he didn't think we had to suppress that.
So what did he think we should do?
Channel it. He believed that institutions could take those individual ambitions and turn them towards something good.
Oh, okay. So using those selfish impulses to actually benefit society.
You get it. Laws, systems of government. These institutions are like the rules of the game.
The rules of the game.
They shape behavior even if people are acting out of self-interest.
Okay, so you set up the system in a way that even if someone is being selfish, it still works out for everyone.
Yeah, that's the goal anyway.
All right, so now we're getting to the part that I find really interesting.
Okay.
This idea that Machiavelli was actually in favor of conflict.
Well, now hold on.
It's not saying start wars or anything, right?
No. It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
He thought that conflict, when it was managed the right way, could make a republic stronger.
Stronger.
Yeah, like having debates, clashes of ideas, those can lead to better laws, more robust institutions.
So it's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
No.
It's about harnessing it.
Exactly. It's like controlled burns in a forest.
I see.
They prevent bigger, more destructive fires later on.
Interesting. So those small conflicts, they actually make the system more resilient.
Precisely. They're like little tests.
Little tests.
Yeah, they expose weaknesses and force you to adapt.
And that's where strong institutions are so important.
Exactly. They provide the framework that lets you handle those disagreements and come out stronger on the other side.
Okay, so far we've got checks and balances, civic virtue, and now managed conflict.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else we need for a successful republic?
Well, there's one more piece we need to discuss.
Okay, hit me with it.
The military.
Oh, right. The military.
Machiavelli believed in a strong citizen army.
Oh, interesting. Like the Roman legions?
Exactly. He saw it as an expression of civic virtue.
Citizens actively defending what's theirs.
Right. Not just relying on hired soldiers.
But didn't he also say in The Prince that professional armies were dangerous?
He did, and that's where things get really interesting.
Okay. We're going to have to unpack that and explore those seemingly contradictory ideas a little later on.
Oh, this is getting good. All right, well, let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back to explore more of these ideas with Machiavelli. Okay, so we're back, and we're talking Machiavelli's Discourses on Livy.
Right. His blueprint for a lasting republic.
Yeah, with all the checks and balances and civic virtue.
And how to manage conflict constructively.
Right. But, it's all well and good to talk about these ideas.
Sure.
But let's get practical here.
Okay.
If we're trying to actually build a successful republic today, what lessons can we learn from Machiavelli?
Well, one big takeaway is that good intentions aren't enough.
Oh, really?
Machiavelli was all about the power of institutions.
Like having strong systems in place.
Exactly. You need systems that work no matter who's in charge.
So it's not just about electing the right people.
It's more than that.
You need the right structures in place.
Yeah, like a strong foundation for a house.
Okay, I like that analogy. It's about creating something that can withstand the test of time and human nature.
Human nature. Right, because even the best people can be corrupted by power.
That's what he believed.
So what kind of institutions would he recommend for today's world?
Well, based on his writings, I think he'd be a big fan of things like an independent judiciary.
Oh, okay.
A free press to keep those in power accountable.
Makes sense.
And strong legislative bodies that truly represent the will of the people.
So kind of like separating powers, different branches, keeping each other in check.
Yeah, I think he'd like that system. But he'd also emphasize that institutions need active participation to thrive.
Not just setting them up and letting them run on autopilot.
Right. People need to be engaged, informed, willing to make the system work.
So it's not enough to just vote every few years.
It's more than that.
You need to stay informed, participate in debates, maybe even run for office yourself.
That's the kind of civic virtue he admired in the ancient Romans.
Okay, so being actively invested in the success of the Republic.
Yeah.
But let's be honest. Wouldn't Machiavelli be pretty disappointed with modern politics?
I mean...
It seems like it's also self-serving these days. Compromise has become a dirty word.
He might have some thoughts on that for sure.
Yeah.
But you have to remember, Machiavelli was a realist.
Right, not some naive idealist.
Exactly. He knew that politics is messy, that there will always be conflict.
So he wasn't trying to create a perfect society.
No.
More like a system that could handle the flaws of human nature.
Right. He was trying to find ways to channel those ambitions towards something positive.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's where his ideas about conflict come in.
Right.
It still seems counterintuitive, though.
I know.
How can conflict make a republic stronger?
Well, think of it like a muscle getting stronger through resistance training.
Okay.
The idea is that those struggles, the disagreements, they can actually lead to better laws, more responsive institutions.
So it's not about suppressing conflict, it's about harnessing its energy.
Exactly. But of course, the question is, how do you keep it from getting out of control?
Right. Where do you draw the line?
That's the tough part. And I think Machiavelli would say it comes back to those strong institutions.
The checks and balances.
Right.
And a culture of civic virtue.
People putting the common good first.
And leaders who can navigate conflict productively. Okay, so strong institutions, engaged citizens, and capable leaders.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a tall order.
It is. It's a delicate balance.
But even then, there's still one big factor we haven't really talked about.
Oh, yeah.
Luck fortune.
You're talking about that element of chance that can throw everything off course?
Exactly. You can have the best systems, the most virtuous people.
And still get hit with a natural disaster or a pandemic?
Sometimes it feels like no matter how prepared you are, luck just takes over.
That's the age-old question. How much control do we really have?
Right.
How do we reconcile our desire to shape our own destiny with the unpredictable nature of events?
And what did Machiavelli have to say about all this?
Well, that's what we're going to explore in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, because I have a feeling he has some pretty interesting insights into how to deal with the whims of fate.
Okay, so last time we were talking about how even with the best systems in place, sometimes luck just takes over.
Right, that element of chance that can really shake things up.
So how did Machiavelli deal with that?
Well, it's interesting. He actually had a lot to say about fortune.
Oh, Really? Yeah, he even compared it to like a raging river.
A raging river?
You can try to control it, build dams and channels, but at the end of the day, it's a force of nature.
So even if you prepare, you might still get swept away.
That's the challenge he lays out. But here's the thing, he didn't think we were completely helpless.
Okay, so what did he suggest?
He believed we could prepare for the unexpected, adapt to those sudden changes.
So being resourceful, quick on your feet.
Exactly, and even being bold when the situation calls for it.
Bold.
Yeah, he admired people who took risks. Calculated risks, of course.
So it's not just about hoping for good luck.
Not at all.
It's about being ready to seize opportunities.
That's a great way to put it. He said fortune favors the bold.
But not the reckless.
Right, there's a difference.
So you need the skills, the awareness to actually grab the reins when fortune throws them your way.
Exactly. And this is where his understanding of human nature comes in.
Okay, how so?
He thought that the people who could handle those twists and turns of fate, they had certain qualities.
Okay.
Like virtue,
Yes.
skill, talent, determination, and also prudence.
Prudence.
That wise judgment to make the right call in a tough spot.
So you need more than just luck. You need to be competent
Exactly.
to be able to think clearly under pressure.
And to be able to adapt your approach when things don't go according to plan.
So it's almost like you need to be able to turn a bad situation into a good one.
That's a good way to think about it.
Where did Machiavelli get these ideas?
Well, he was a big believer in learning from history.
So studying the past can help us deal with the uncertainties of the future.
Exactly. He thought that by looking at how other people have dealt with challenges, we could learn how to face our own.
So history isn't just a bunch of names and dates.
It's a source of practical wisdom.
A way to understand the forces at play in the world.
And to recognize that even the best plans can be disrupted by events outside our control.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
From checks and balances to civic virtue to the role of fortune.
And everything in between.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Machiavelli, what's the main takeaway?
Well, I think Machiavelli ultimately challenges us to be both ambitious and prudent.
Okay.
To strive for great things, but to recognize that we don't have complete control over the outcome.
So accepting that the world is unpredictable.
But also believing that we can still make choices that influence our destiny.
So we're not just passive passengers.
Not at all. We have agency, we can learn from the past, and use that knowledge to navigate the present and the future.
And maybe if we can do all that,
If we can cultivate that blend of virtue and prudence,
build strong institutions, participate in civic life,
and face those challenges head on.
then maybe we can create societies that are truly resilient and adaptable.
And increase our chances of success no matter what fortune throws our way.
Well, that's a great note to end on, I think.
I think so too.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Machiavelli's Discourses on Livy.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Remember, knowledge is power.
And understanding the past can help us build a better future.
So, until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring those fascinating depths of human thought.